So I think we'll begin now, and for the opening comments, we'll go from left to right alphabetically, starting with Jason Farr. So you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Nicholas, and thank you, everybody. Thank you to the DNA and fellow candidates. As many of you know, I lived on Robinson Street for some years, and throughout my 5 years of high school before that, I worked and was honored to work my way toward assistant ice maker at the Thistle Club. The Durand is special to me, and I know is special to a lot of you. It is dense, it is diverse, and it is very engaged, and this is one example of that. There are many issues: parking lots, development, traffic, crime, seniors accessibility, your one and only beautiful park about to be more beautiful, and of course, heritage. We've witnessed unprecedented and widely celebrated revitalization across our ward in the last 4 years. I want to build on momentum, but as we do that, we need to continue to work together to address the innate challenges that sometimes come with the momentum that we're seeing. And in the Durand, we want to continue to focus on calming traffic. There was 1,000 additional jobs created in downtown, 2,000 condos completed or are in progress of being complete, this over the last 4 years, and that's many more people living and driving downtown. And as we build on momentum, let's remain dedicated to promoting complete streets and multimodal options and sharing facts that garner council support for pedestrian-friendly streets and for our families and for our seniors. Our Queen Street traffic study is one example where residents worked with their councillor and the CCS, clearly showing we can create safe streets that work for everyone. In Durand, as development occurs, we will continue to engage on smart development. Yours is a neighborhood already densely populated, but when applications come along, let's continue to engage together and engage early and often. We can support smart growth by making certain of the unique virtues of the neighborhood and those virtues being appreciated. We'll continue to respect our heritage as we did with our drives to designate threatened or potentially threatened properties in the last 4 years, supported unanimously and in an unprecedented way by my councillor colleagues on not one but 2 occasions. We expedited the protection of over 900 properties to the downtown built heritage inventory list, spent over $700K stabilizing St. Mark's, and held well-attended public information centers there. And we can do an even better job, in my opinion. We're going to remain inclusive. We turned that word into action with $750K in security cameras at 3 Durand City Housing high-rises, making your neighbors and neighborhood more safe and secure, and assisting the police with their investigations. We initiated 2 participatory budgeting exercises that offered $2 million of your dollars and your ideas. And when the devastating Pasadena fire occurred, we raised $35,000 together. And of the various demographics living there, they needed that, and they needed our engagement. And that's something I did, and that's something I want to continue to do in an even bigger and better way. Thank you very much for the last 4 years. I'm hoping for 4 more.
Thank you, Mr. Farr.
Thank you.
Ms. Heaton.
Thank you, DNA Group. I belong to the Beasley Association, actually, and I am Central Hamilton resident. I've grown up here, and I grew up in poverty, so I understand all the problems related to that in an abusive household. But I was an honor student throughout school, but I had to leave. I traveled all over the continent over the years, and I learned something about successful cities. Returning about a year and a half to Hamilton, I was really rather disappointed with the downtown core to see every building boarded up, to hear a report that found 5,000 needles in the downtown core within 1 year. There were a number of issues that struck me. So I thank God for bringing me back to the area where I thought I could contribute and help and turn things around, because I was really flabbergasted as to how it had become. So I began in the Beasley Association, where the residents voted me to be in the participatory budgeting committee. So I represented the group, and in the first year, 1,000 people turned out to vote. 26 people actually voted for the bike lane to be installed on Cannon Street. I had wanted it to go on Wilson Street. The distance is exactly the same distance, but it's a lot calmer, quieter, and it borders onto the Beasley Park. where those people at the skateboard park wanted actually to upgrade that area, and it still hasn't been done to date. So there were a number of issues. Altogether, about 70 projects came forward. 25 arrived at staffing for review and to see the feasibility of those projects. Now, I believe that we need to curtail spending. We need to prioritize what is important. And what I've seen is congestion and traffic confusion, which only increases the toxic emissions from various vehicles, trucks. 1,000 transport trucks leave the industries daily. This town is an industrial city. It's a port town, and we should be doing more. So in hindsight, the transport continues to spew out all kinds of toxic chemicals, and on the global scale, it reaches far wider. Recently, I heard that half of all wildlife has vanished off our planet. So for us to not put traffic as a priority would be a big mistake. So I'd like to clear up congestion, and unfortunately, we have the lowest population paying the highest taxes per capita and the largest socioeconomic burden. This needs to change. Governments have become large spending institutions, and we need to reel it in. We can't do that any longer, and our investor confidence in our
Thank you, Ms.
industries
Heaton.
also has dwindled. I'm Christina Heaton. Just think the heat is on. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is John Vale, and I am a Durand resident here. And I actually cut my teeth here in local politics in the Durand Neighbourhood Association. These meetings have been going on as long as I've lived here, and I've tried to beat most of them. And I remember the first one with the mayor's debates, and I even remember meeting Andrew Horvath for the first time in a Durand Residents Association meeting. So there you go. And we live in Durand. My mother is here, who lives next door to keep an eye on me. My wife is here. My son is also here at the back there. A McMaster graduate, as I am, from so-called executive education so that they can charge more. Anyway, the problem is with Durand, let me just go back to, and I sent out thousands of invitations for this meeting, and I hope you got some of them hand-delivered over the last weekend. The Durand Association asked the question in their flyer, how do you want your city to grow? Which is a very appropriate way of addressing this meeting. And the 4 topics that they listed were development, heritage, culture, and LRT, BRT. Well, as an accountant, as a bean counter, let me tell you that you have a clear alternative here in this neighborhood. This neighborhood is frankly under siege, and as are many neighborhoods in the Ward 2 area, with the kind of push for development and the pro-development attitude of our city council and, in fact, our incumbent. And we have a clear alternative to controlled development, and all of the time that I have been walking around and doing the canvassing here in the Durand neighborhood and elsewhere, I don't see anyone pushing a pro-development agenda at the resident level. I think everyone knows, and all the studies have shown, that a pro-development agenda of any city councillor is almost a kiss of death for the political future. We need controlled development. We believe in heritage. I wouldn't be living in Durand without the heritage that we have, and that when I walk around in Durand, there are so many people that are doing renovations and construction, and it's a jewel not just for this city, but it's been recognized as one of the finest heritage residential areas in North America, and I intend to keep it that way when I'm elected. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vale. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much to the Durand Neighbourhood Association for having us all here tonight. My name is Terry Wallace, and I'm running for City Council here in Ward 2. I have lived in this ward for over 14 years and choose to run here because I believe that to really represent a ward, you should live in that ward and it should be your home. I have extensive experience in government. As a member of the Advisory Committee for Persons with Disabilities for the City of Hamilton, I have worked as an advisor to City Council for the past 8 years. I have almost 30 years of political experience on all 3 levels, and I find the municipal level to be the most personal and the most rewarding. As a member of the Advisory Committee's Transportation Subcommittee, I have acquired a substantial amount of experience in public transportation. Not only have I worked with and advised HSR, DARTs, ATS, and the taxi industry over the years, I also use public transportation on a daily basis, and that is a practice that I will continue to use as a city councillor. A bus stop presentation I made to the Public Works Committee over a year ago resulted in a citywide audit of all bus stops, new barrier-free designs for bus stops and shelters, and repairs to bus stops, making them much more accessible for everyone. I have also served on Metrolink's Accessibility Advisory Committee for over 7 years. As the chair of the Built Environment Subcommittee, I have played a large part in the improvements made to the McNabb Terminal and the Lister Block, as well as other areas throughout the city. I am very aware of the problems of the failing infrastructure, and serious work needs to be done to fix dangerous and damaged sidewalks throughout our ward. I also sit on the newly formed Go On, the Business Improvement Area Association Advisory Committee, Accessibility Advisory Committee. As a councillor, I will be available to my constituents. I will welcome your input. I will listen. I will work with individuals, groups, businesses, and associations to help make your goals for Ward 2 a reality. I will return all communications promptly and follow up personally on all issues brought to my attention. I believe that residents should have a strong voice in the development of their neighborhoods that they live in, and that voice should be acknowledged, really listened to, respected, and honored. I believe that everyone should feel safe, secure, comfortable, proud, empowered, and included in their neighborhood and that they call home. As a city councillor, I will work for you. I will listen to you. I will represent your interests, and I will help
10
make your
seconds.
neighborhood and Ward 2 a place where we are all proud to call home. And when I'm not working for you, I play sled hockey. I'm goalie for the Hamilton Sled Hammers sled hockey
Thank
team,
you,
our
Ms.
intermediate
Wallace.
team.
Thanks very much. And now we'll move to the question component of the Ward 2 candidates debate. As I said, each candidate will be posed a question. They'll have 1 minute to answer, and then any of the other candidates who wish to add something or rebut will have a chance. And for the rebuttals, if we could just go left to right, and if you don't want to add anything, just say so, and we'll move on to the next person. So the first question is to Wallace. And it is, what is your position on heritage preservation, and do you have specific goals for safeguarding heritage within Ward 2?
I feel that heritage is very, very important. It is our history, and it must be protected at all costs. But protecting our history does not mean that we can't improve on it, and it certainly does not have to mean that we can't make it accessible. I think that heritage is something that needs to be enjoyed by everybody, and there are ways to do that. There are ways to make heritage accessible without changing the way it looks, without changing the feel in any way whatsoever. I feel that heritage is very, very important, and I will do everything I can to make sure that all our heritage buildings can be enjoyed by every resident of the ward and the rest of the city.
Would anyone like to add anything? Jason?
Sure. I appreciate the issue more and more every day, certainly downtown. And it all started 4 years ago when we managed to save those freezes at 150 Main, now part of an adaptive reuse development with Vrancor at the old Federal Building. And then, of course, we worked hard on St. Mark's. We all read, I'm sure, with interest and worked with people like the DNA on the Gore with an unprecedented mandate, unanimous mandate of council and the mayor in a last-minute resolution to save some buildings and try to work the issues out. And after about a year of trying to hammer out a compromise, there was a recent issue in the last year, of course, in the Durand at 1 St. James, where I was once again supported by council and supporting an important issue, of course, as it relates to heritage. On King Street, 2 buildings with City Housing Hamilton, as well as many other initiatives. And I just want to note, with just 5 seconds remaining, we have a heritage buff in our new General Manager of Planning and Economic Development, as you may have all read today.
Thank you, Mr. Farr.
Madam, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. and Madam Chair. You heard the comment from the incumbent, a last-minute resolution. You just heard it, so, and it's on tape. So that's the attitude of heritage, according to the incumbent councillor. Thank you.
Okay. Eden?
I'll just take a moment. I believe we should liaison with the community groups and the BIAs, as well as the local heritage council, as to what to preserve and how, while also allowing owners some flexibility as to what they want to do. One of the other things that I thought was very important, our own market is in jeopardy. I was talking to the people down there, and heritage is not only buildings, it's places like our market. I think we should do more to keep that alive.
Thanks very much. We'll go on now to the second question. I'll address this one to Farr. Ward 2 is home to the highest number of pedestrians and cyclists, and the city aims to increase walking and cycling as a share of all transportation citywide. Yet downtown contains wide, one-way thoroughfares squeezing high-speed traffic between narrow sidewalks. How will you improve the environment for pedestrians and cyclists in Ward 2? What changes would you make to downtown streets to make walking and cycling safer and less intimidating?
Well, to be proactive and to get it on the record, we did put 900 buildings on the registry last year and expedited that process. I did mention
could you
that
please
on
address
record in
the
my address.
question?
For cycling, we set a standard for ourselves with the Cannon two-way track. We have a lot of safe and accessible, complete streets, but we could have a lot more. We're going to keep an eye on 15 million red light reserve from our traffic department and utilize those funds for more of what we have accomplished. Pinch point bollards in your neighborhood, wider sidewalks is what they represent. We have put more stop signs. We can put more stop signs. Speed humps are popular, but pricey. The NETMP has become the envy of a whole lot of neighborhoods, not just in downtown, but throughout the city. And we'll watch that 5-year pilot come to a conclusion in the next term of council and see what we can do elsewhere to implement some of those traffic calming
10
measures.
seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you. Heaton?
Yes, in regards to the all the bump outs and that, I find as a cyclist and a walker, a lot of people are having accidents. In fact, right on Cannon and James, there's an accident all the time. And I walk that area all the time. I'm trying to take in 10,000 steps a day. And I'm telling you, if I see a handful of people using that Cannon Street lane there, and there's 1,000 trucks that spew out toxic emissions out of there, I certainly won't go down that lane and be breathing in that stuff. And anybody on mobility devices, wheelchairs, they go on the sidewalk, they just buzz through, they don't even stop at the intersections. So I really think before winter and the storms coming, all those bike racks and all of that was fast-tracked and put there.
10
I don't know where
seconds.
the ice and snow is going to go, because our climate is going to be in dire straits this winter, and we need to have our public
Thank you,
works
Ms. Heaton.
accessible. Thank you.
Thank you. Vale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we have to put a hold on what we've got already and take a look at what we have, because, you know, when you look on the internet at your own homes on the walkable score, we already have one of the most walkable neighborhoods anywhere in North America, and we can keep it that way as is. Thank you very much.
Safe sidewalks are extremely important for all pedestrians everywhere. And just noticing in the last few days as I've been canvassing, even coming here tonight, the sidewalks are in terrible condition. People with mobility devices have to wheel on the road because the sidewalks are dangerous. I almost fell out of my wheelchair a few times lately, hitting uneven cracks and bumps. If we're going to make our sidewalks safe for everybody, they have to be fixed, okay? Council has to work on infrastructure. We have to make sure to make sidewalks safe for everybody. They have to be repaired, they have to be even, the curb cuts have to be nice and smooth, everything has to be fixed so they can be enjoyed by everybody.
Thank you very much. So now a question to Heaton. Hamilton is poised to see significant population growth in the years ahead. Do you support urban intensification, retaining the current urban boundary, and not locating future industrial and residential development on existing agricultural land? If not, how would you grow responsibly in the next few decades in our city?
Well, one thing is true, our population is growing. And for example, some urban intensification is inevitable, particularly by the waterfront. Right now, 1,600 condos are being planned for the waterfront. This can mean double that for the amount of vehicles. With all the bump outs, calming curves, and all the two-way streets, vehicles stopping and starting will create a serious increase in sulfur oxides and many other cancer-causing chemicals into our environment. As I said earlier, half of all the planet's wildlife has died off. We must reduce our carbon footprint in an urgent manner to intensify without thinking of roads and accessibility, and simply putting all these bump outs
10
everywhere
seconds.
is not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Far, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, well, we heard tonight already from some candidates that we want to ease up on development, and we also don't want boarded up shops. I'm certainly supportive, quite obviously, with the record on intensification. I talked a few times already tonight about smart growth. We don't want on our waterfront, for example, what they're doing in Toronto. One thing that I've done on 3 different occasions is go after our surface parking lots in downtown Hamilton, which is an absolute disgrace. They could be more than surface parking lots. They can be a mixed development that includes residential, that adds to our tax base, so we can help continue the fight against raising your taxes. And we can also bring some commercial uses, and within those mixed developments, we can also bring and accommodate leveled parking, parkade parking, and not this asphalt mess that is really, truly a disgrace in Hamilton when you look at our overhead map and compare it to
10
any other
seconds.
great Canadian city. And those are things that I've worked on. Those are things I want to see to fruition in the coming years.
Thank you. Vale?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I have looked at, and you need to check the record on this, intensification does not necessarily mean residential intensification. I see the mayoral candidates in the back. I'm sure they're going to be talking about employment growth. And that employment growth, you take a look at what's happened in this area, and what City Council has done is they've taken former employment land and rezoned it for residential intensification. That's not how we create jobs in the community. We create jobs by keeping employment land for employment. And long after this debate is gone, please, as you are all activists here, make sure that your future council does not rezone employment land to high-density residential. Thank you very much.
Wallace?
I think one thing that we need to do that's very important for the city of Hamilton is to look at a lot of the empty buildings that we have in Central and Beasley. Those buildings need to be repurposed for housing. There's a shortage of housing. We don't need to build houses in the suburbs. We don't need to build 30-story buildings. We need to take buildings that already exist, fix them up, and turn them into housing. But not just housing, community centers, community kitchens, shelters, you know, anything. We can solve a lot of problems doing that. For one thing, if you take a building, you fix it up, you get rid of an eyesore. You give people a place to live. That gets people who are homeless off the street. It gives them a nice, safe, comfortable place to live. Okay? You're giving jobs to people. You're eliminating crime.
10
You're
seconds.
eliminating squatters. Housing is something that is very, very important. It also gives downtown Hamilton a better view from the rest of the city.
Thanks very much. Now a question to Vail. Based on the number of organized neighborhood groups in Ward 2, it's fair to say the residents in this ward are very engaged in their community. How would you, as a councillor, communicate effectively with residents to keep them informed and up to date on issues affecting them and their neighborhoods?
I think I wrote that question. That's great. I love it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My teeth, as I said in the intro, were actually cut with residents associations, and I have a great pleasure in engaging with councils, various councils. As a matter of fact, my reputation around town is, "Hi, John." And when I go to city councils, not just this one, "Hi, John, nice to see you. Why are you here?" So as a result, I've had to spend the better part of 30 years, I think. We've always been attacked by development, my family's property, my mom, our
10
own.
seconds.
I will engage with the residents the same way that I've had to engage myself in the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Farr, do you have a position on this?
We are more engaged than anywhere else here in downtown Hamilton. 6 neighborhood associations all actively meeting, usually on a monthly basis. I get to as many as possible. I would continue to get to as many neighborhood association meetings as possible. And as well, I think my attendance is perfect or near perfect when the NAs send representatives on a quarterly basis and we all get together at City Hall and discuss common issues. In addition to that, I think that I could hold more town halls. Held a few in my time, called one on the casino, called a town hall on the Queen Street study, and got a whole lot of participation from residents through that meeting that we called. I would produce more newsletters. I would be even more active on social media and continue with the Ward 2 word and to try to get the message out to all of the residents and, of course, the BIAs, which I would continue to attend regularly as well. Engagement to me, folks, is of the utmost importance, and I do listen, and you do talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Eaton?
Yes, as I said, since I came back about a year and a half ago to this community, I joined a number of different committees, and one of them was happened with the Beasley Group and the McMaster University study group that arrived at some conclusions, and they said that there were enablers and then there were barriers. Apparently our area in the downtown core had more barriers than enablers. They stated that there was a lack of leadership, that they needed a champion to lead projects forward. And so I was then subsequently voted to be the tracker and help move the projects forward. So I was going to get involved in that and as a volunteer. But then I thought, well, there's
10
already
seconds.
250,000 volunteers in the city, and I wanted to do more, so I'm running for Ward 2.
Thank you very much. Wallace?
I'd just like to say that one of the most important things to me is for all of you to have a voice. Every resident deserves to have a say in what happens in your neighborhood. Your neighborhood is your home, and you should be comfortable with it. We need to listen. As a counselor, I will listen to what everybody has to say. I will meet with individuals. I will meet with groups. I will meet with businesses. I will meet with the neighborhood associations. I will listen to what you have to say. I will honor your decisions, and I will do everything that I can to make sure your decisions, your dreams for your ward become a reality.
Thank you very much. So we set 5 questions that the candidates had in advance. I've asked 4, so there'll be one person who gets to lead on 2 questions, but you each have the same amount of time. So we'll go now from the other end, and we'll have Far address a proven way to reduce congestion and pollution and make travel more affordable and accessible is to increase infrastructure that supports walking, cycling, and public transit. Which transit projects will you prioritize in your 4 years on council?
Okay, thank you, Nicholas, for the questions tonight, and thank you to the DNA for the questions in advance. I would complete our work on Queen Street. It is incomplete at this point. Get council support on the participatory budget initiatives that some supported Safer Streets in 2014. Address making bike lanes safer. There are more than 10 kilometers of bike lanes in the last 4 years, and to make them safer, it means we're going to get more users. We have a growing senior population. More buses and bus shelters are important to seniors. More consistency in buses. We need to make certain the province fulfills its promise of 100% capital funding for LRT, and we need to do a better job demonstrating that light rail is good for all of Hamilton, not just inner city or transit users in the inner city. We have a nodes and corridors planning study. It is inner city building, but it's also city building, and it's also environmentally friendly, and it's also desired by just about every business institution in the city of Hamilton. Thanks for the questions.
Thank you. Heaton?
I'm against the light rail system at this time, just because one of the reasons being that the technology is evolving at such a great rate right now that by next year there will be something superior already. But the dust hasn't even settled on the stadium costs or the GO station. We're going to be loaded with expenses from there and from Public Works, I'm sure, with the snow and conditions coming at us. I think Niagara-on-the-Lake has the best idea for combination sidewalks. They use cyclists and pedestrians. It's easier to slow down people on a sidewalk to allow the pedestrian to pass and have the bicycle rider to stop rather than
10
navigating
seconds.
through big, huge vehicles. So it seems to be, it's called combination sidewalks, shared footways.
Thank you, Ms. Heaton.
Thank you. Vale?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to clearly differentiate myself from the incumbent. If elected, I will be getting rid of the bus lanes in downtown Hamilton. Have you seen the Spectator article? It's devastating for businesses. We've talked to businesses through the Chamber of Commerce in the downtown core, and they are closing or moving. And that's not good for the downtown. It's not good for Ward 2. It's not good for this city. Thank you very much.
Wallace?
Transportation is something that is very, very important to me and very important to the city. I agree with Mr. Vale on the bus lanes. I do not think that they are doing anybody any good in any way whatsoever. I think that we desperately need to improve transportation. One thing I would like to see is more articulated buses. They're a lot more efficient. They hold more people. I would like to see an express route put on Barton Street, like a C line, you know, to go with well, the A line or the B line. We get a lot of traffic on there. There are a lot of full buses, even buses running every 10 minutes, the buses are still full. The LRT is something that will be coming. It's coming in the future, but right now we've got to work to make transportation as best we possibly can. And I think that's one way of doing it.
Thank you very much. So now it looks like we have a little bit of time before we move to the mayoral debate. No? That's what I was about to say, Janice, that we have time to take questions from the audience. So if you have a question, put up your hand and someone will bring you a cordless microphone.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Wolf. I'll be the owner of the mic. Good evening. So I ask you to get the questions from over on this aisle or on the other aisle, and I'll come forward and pass the mic.
And just to let everybody know, the candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions from the audience as well.
I'll take a question. I live in Ward 2, so I wouldn't mind asking my candidates a question. All right, guys, so I live in Ward 2, and I haven't decided which of you four I'm going to vote for. I know I'm voting Thursday, October. You can vote in the advanced polls at City Hall, so do so. Question is to the candidates. I'm at City Hall every day.
The question should be to a specific candidate.
Yes.
And they all get a
Specific.
chance to respond,
No,
correct?
no, one.
Then I will pass, because I don't
Okay.
want to ask one candidate
Yep.
over the others, so.
Nicholas, I just had, would you like to stand, sir? Thank you.
I think you should be allowed to ask one question and let them all respond.
If people want to do that, but that will mean fewer questions overall. Okay, we'll go with that then. So Joey, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, everybody can hear me, or you want to give him first, so go ahead, that's fine.
You were there
Quick
first.
question about leadership. To Terry Willis, what is your leadership style?
My leadership style is basically this. You are the leaders, it's your community, I work for you.
Go, you can ask your question.
Okay, so I'm at City Hall pretty much every day, every meeting. I'm very concerned, as somebody who lives in Ward 2 and is at City Hall, about the toxic culture crisis at City Hall. We have 25% of staff saying that they're aware of wrongdoing, but they're afraid to report it. We have over half of staff saying that rules are not being applied properly. We have an attendance crisis at City Hall in terms of staff absenteeism, sick days, it's quite high. I also have seen good staff decide to go to places like Niagara, Guelph, Brantford. These are not people that are going up to the province. These are people that are going sideways to other municipalities and telling me privately that part of it is that they could not work in the city of Hamilton. How are you, as a councillor, going to help guide the culture change to address this crisis?
So we'll go left to right again. If you'd like to respond, say so. Otherwise, pass the mic to your colleague.
Well, first of all, Joey Coleman, joeycoleman.ca. We're on council anyway, very supportive of the work he does. He is there just about every day, and he offers a perspective like no other. And he offered a perspective tonight that deserves some attention, and fair enough. I personally have quite enjoyed my experience with my council colleagues, with senior management, and I can tell you that when those occasions occur where we need a separate entity, a third-party evaluation of some form of conduct, whether it inevitably becomes misconduct, is another story. But we have those offices in place. We have an integrity commissioner. We have an ombudsman. And we certainly, I think, respond accordingly. As for staff morale,
10 seconds.
I will agree with Joey. Coming in 4 years earlier and having a history back in the 80s with Culture and Rec as a soupy, it wasn't as good as it could have been. Throughout the last 4 years, with a great mandate from our
Mr.
city
Farr.
manager, it's getting a lot better.
Thank you. Eden?
Yes, I had heard when I went to register a security guard whistling the tune from a circus theme, and I kind of got a heads up that that's what I was coming into, is a circus. But
You're right.
I was more determined than ever. And luckily, though, I was watching an interview on CBC with Hazel McCallium. She's my inspiration and motivation, and I just love her. I absolutely believe she is the person. She is not a yes person. She is more a no person. She doesn't believe in spending. She doesn't make promises she can't keep. If she can't find an answer, she finds somebody who can. She gets back to people. She is such a firecracker of a person, and everything she said in that half an hour, I watched it all extra one more time again this morning, because I
10
thought
seconds.
she is the spirit that I want to carry onward with this city in Ward 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Vale?
Thank you very much, Mr. Coleman, for the question. The best way to change the culture at City Hall is to hire anyone else but the incumbent. Thank you.
Wallace?
What do I say after that? I can't argue with that in any way whatsoever.
Thank you.
One way to make the atmosphere a lot better is to create a much more positive attitude. I think a lot of fresh faces and fresh ideas on council is a very good way to do it. Accountability, transparency is another way to do it. If there is not a lot of secrets, if there's not a lot of wrongdoing, if people enjoy going to work, if people are working in a positive atmosphere, everything is better. And I think the best way to do that is with some new, fresh faces on council.
Thank you.
This is addressed to Mr. Jason Parr himself. My name is Lawrence Tetro. I live in, I'll talk fast because I only got so long to talk. I live in the Blight and Allenton area. You're saying that you look after residents. You have taken us on a beautiful train ride. And the GO train station is not built yet. So where the hell are we going to board? No, I'm telling you, you forgot about the residents there. You waylaid us. You buffooned us. Now, my wife had finished it off by saying, don't get too mad, Lawrence. It's time for new blood. It's time for somebody else to kick the bucket. And I hope that one of the other gentlemen do kick the bucket. Now, if you can give me an answer to this, God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what the question, if you're referring to the density that's going to go after the trail, after the train track that you've become used to, and up the hill a little bit. At the currently, well, the formerly zoned light industrial yard that we moved as a council to turn to residential development as opposed to what could have been in light industrial, some trucking yard or something else in your backyard, then I understand that there was some angst by the nearby residents. I did attend all 3 neighborhood meetings. I didn't watch what I've seen in other communities where a negotiated better residential development was on the table. It never was. So 5 stories, 6 stories, 6 stories that will go through a planning process that I will watch very carefully as your elected representative, that will blend with the escarpment and that won't cause you the kind of trouble that some in your neighborhood, like yourself, sir, are anticipating.
Thank you. Would another candidate like to respond?
Yes, I am so surprised that there's even a consideration to move those rail yards away. We're an industrial town, we're a port city, and I am sure somehow we are going to get more manufacturing jobs here. We need to keep the port open, we need to keep the rail lines running. I just can't imagine where you're going to move all those tracks.
Thank you. Vale, would you like to respond too?
I'd actually like to hear from the mayoral candidates about how we encourage employment in the brownfield areas. Certainly I would, as your councillor.
Thank you. Wallace, do you have a comment? Thanks. Questions from the audience?
I witnessed some very difficult decision-making last year at council for issues that aren't that terribly popular with the majority of taxpayers. Those that impact the 20% of the population that are low income or on social assistance. Part of it is the game, the province setting the rules, downloading the program management to the municipalities. The decision-making was around, does the municipality pick up some of the funding cut by the province in order to ensure that individuals who pass away in poverty actually get some type of funeral. That's just one example of the type of hard decision-making that had to take place last year. My question is, how will you handle such tough issues when you know they're not particularly that popular with the majority of citizens? Don't get media coverage, don't get good attention as to why these issues are so difficult.
Is that addressed to a specific candidate?
It's specific, yeah.
Anyone is used.
Okay, I can answer that. I just read the report by the Science Research Council and on poverty, and they did come out with a number of recommendations to increase funding for low income, no income, and to raise the wages and subsidize wages. There were a number of recommendations. Some really good moves were put in this report. And then the province is coming out with a $200 million plan for poverty reduction. I think all the levels of government need to communicate better with each other and find out who's done what and finally implement some of these strategies rather than hire more professional people to study it more. I think it's been studied to death. We just need to get things moving for these people.
Right.
Would someone else like to respond?
I would say thank you. It's a very good question. You're right. It doesn't receive the kind of attention that it should in the mainstream media. I was a very proud chair this last year of Emergency Community Services. It's very easily the most difficult standing community to be a party to. I grew up with humble means, as many people in this room know. My family benefited from social services throughout my childhood, and I felt personally the stigma, whether it was going through a grocery store checkout or otherwise. I certainly have an understanding and undoubtedly a soft spot for the issues around emergency community services. I think we were very creative. You mentioned just one creative maneuver in a completely underfunded municipal system. We have appealed many times to the province. The province, as noted, is stepping up a little bit. They could step up more. Our rapport with the province is essential, and it's what is also essential to me, and something I really want to work on in the future, is not segregation, but mixed income communities.
Thank you. Other comments?
I understand poverty. I'm on ODSP right now. I've been on ODSP for over the last 25 years. I know what poverty is like. I know what it's like trying to wonder if you can afford to pay your rent. If you pay your rent, can you buy food? You know, if you buy food, can you pay your bills? It's something that needs to be dealt with. There are hard questions. There always will be hard questions. It's part of the job. Everything can't be fun. You have to deal with all aspects of it. The easy questions, the things that make you popular, and the things that don't. It is hard, but it is extremely important. It is probably some of the most important things that you need to deal with.
Thank you. Vale?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. What's also pushing us into poverty here in Ward 2 is the property taxes. We have assessment increase and assessment growth here that is pushing us way above the average increase of property taxes here in the city of Hamilton. And it's just a factor of the market. So you need a tax watchdog like a John Vale to keep an eye on things at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question from the audience?
Councillor Barr, you mentioned the traffic study in the North End. It's based on adding 750 units to the North End. That was the city's position. The North End Neighbourhood has supported 750 units. You talked about a desperate need to add more units in Beasley. Would you support the extra 800 or 900 that the North End doesn't want being built in Beasley?
You are among, I guess, the members of the North End Neighbourhood Association, or the member of the North End Neighbourhood Association community, having a big community meeting tomorrow night. I saw the notice on Twitter today. A few people have forwarded me some of that information that was sent around the neighborhood. I very much look forward to getting into more detail if I have the opportunity to speak tomorrow night at that meeting. I very much look forward to that. I have a lot of confidence in the plan that we have and the council mandate that we have as it relates to waterfront development. We didn't get a lot of opposition at the meeting that approved the current plan for the waterfront, and in fact in the recent urban design study for just down the road, Barton and Tiffany, very little delegation. So that's a symbol, I think, having been in meetings where public delegations went all day and sometimes 2 days, that we may be doing something right as it relates to smartly growing our waterfront and making it a people place for everybody. And making it comfortable for North Enders as well.
Thank you. Ethan, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. On last count, it's 1,600 units for that north end. So now if you narrow down every roadway down to one lane and you have those bump outs come out so that those lanes, everybody's got to maneuver around those, how are you going to, and if 1,600 units go out and it's a two-car family, that's 3,200 cars coming and going just into that north end alone. Like it's not a month ago I launched a smart plan and I posted it on different sites on the internet, and I'm doing a lot on social media, and I'm telling you, the plans, it's the cart before the horse. It just doesn't make sense, the plans that are moving forward, and it shows a lot of apathy in the city with little response. In fact, that was quoted on the Research Council, that there's not enough participation in these committees. We need a lot more participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to the questioner. You heard the incumbent say there weren't a lot of delegations on Barton Tiffany. I was one of the delegations, and I was against what was being proposed. Thank you.
Wallace?
I've spoken with a lot of residents in the North End, a lot of people on the North End Neighborhood Association, and I know that they are very upset with the way some of the development is being handled down there. They have given their suggestions, they have given their preferences, and those have been completely ignored. I think that it is very important, as I've said before, that residents have a say. We need housing, but housing needs to be done in an intelligent way, in a way that suits the neighborhood, that keeps the charm and the dignity, and keeps everybody in the neighborhood proud to be in those neighborhoods.
Thank you. And we have time for one more question from the audience.
Thank you. My name is Durand. My question is to all candidates. We have heard a little bit about housing, affordable housing, poverty, homeless, and a lot of things that, unfortunately, on Ward 2, we face that. For over 20 years, I've gone to City Hall, and when somebody make a presentation in regards to that, the answer is the city can address that by ourselves. We need the provincial and federal government. I will ask all the candidates, what are you going to do to bring the other MPPs, MPs, and ministers who are responsible for housing, homeless, and poverty to Hamilton to address those issues together?
Thanks very much, and we'll go from left to right again, starting with Barr.
I have every confidence that we will elect our next mayor with a great deal of capabilities to that end. Communicating with upper levels of government, be it provincial or federal, is something I think, particularly the three so-called frontrunners, but the rest of them as well, the 7 or so others, are capable of doing, and I think that's where it starts, from our mayor's office, and I have every confidence that council's conversations will be heard.
Thank you. Ethan?
Well, I know in the downtown core we have 50 plus different cultures speaking a variety of different languages, and there is poverty and there is lack of communication. People don't know where to access resources, skills, increase their skills level, retraining, and a number of other things. I'd like to push forward programs like the Threshold. Threshold is a program where people come into it, learn how to do carpenter work, and then they fix people's porches and decks and whatever like that. So to move things like that forward, and then when they hit a certain skill set, then they can move on to colleges and other higher institutions. So they need to be channeled more efficiently, and people just don't know where to go and who to access at what location. And there are 150 funders, but people just don't know where to go. So that needs to improve.
Thank you very much. Vale?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. As an example to the questioner of, I've already hosted meetings because of my relationships with all parties in the provincial government. I've hosted meetings already to discuss Hamilton issues. We had 100 people last week and many provincial representatives talking about the future of Ontario and the future of Hamilton, and I think that's good for the city. Thank you.
Thanks. Wallace?
I think communication is extremely important. Communication on all levels. I think it is extremely important that council talks to provincial and federal politicians as well. We need to meet regularly. Municipal government, provincial government, and federal government talking together, working together, communicating together.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank all the Ward 2 candidates for coming out tonight and answering the questions. And we'll take a brief break now while we change over for the mayoral debate. And I'd like to ask the mayoral candidates to start moving to the front, please.